I now recognize the ranking member for 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to all of our witnesses for joining us today. Mr. Beer, does deporting people to another country require the country's cooperation? Are there some countries that won't accept deportations? Which countries are those, and do you expect that to change under the second Trump administration?
Yeah, so you do need cooperation from the countries that you're sending these individuals to. They need travel authorization. They need to demonstrate that they are citizens of the country they're being sent to. If you have no diplomatic relations like we do with Venezuela, you can't deport people very easily to Venezuela if they're refusing to cooperate in that process. Now, for very serious offenders, the Biden administration has figured out ways to go through a third country to deport them. So they are trying to make efforts to get around that already, and I expect those efforts would continue under a Trump administration. But it's difficult if you're not going to reestablish diplomatic relations with the socialist government there.
Got it. Mr. Chapman, Project 2025 calls for terminating funding for criminal Homeland Security grants, including the Urban Area Security Initiative and the State Homeland Security Program, while advocating for state and local governments to bear the financial responsibility instead. In your testimony, Mr. Chapman, in your testimony, you stated that Congress must increase our access to technological investigative tools for law enforcement. Will 2025's plan to terminate Homeland Security and grant programs help to protect your community?
Mr. Ranking Member, I think it's important that we continue to work with Congress, that we continue to get as much funding as possible to help with our efforts there in protecting our borders and working with Homeland Security. So I'm not really quite sure exactly what your question is there, but I do think it's imperative that we continue to work. And
well, let me be clear what the question is. These projects that aim to dismantle these programs under Project 2025, will they help you or hurt you?
Well, I'm not aware.
If you're talking about taking,
I'm not aware of what.
well, I'm sharing with you now. There is
Okay.
a 900-page manifesto that spells it out quite clearly. One of the things that it spells out is what I just suggested.
Well, I can't answer for Project 2025. I have
Well,
not.
let's take Project 2025 away and say if these tools for law enforcement were taken away, regardless of how it happened, Project 2025 or some other nefarious action that reduced your resources, does it help you or hurt you in your efforts?
We continue to need resources to fight these
I
efforts.
assume the answer is yes.
The answer is we would continue to need resources. However, I do agree that efficiency is important in anything that we do in the federal government.
Will eliminating these resources further assist your community in preventing or responding to crime?
Eliminating resources from the federal government that helps our local law enforcement would create difficulty for us, yes.
If we go back and we talk about some of the things that were mentioned, Mr. Thompson, we've mentioned and we've said repeatedly that this committee should talk about this in not a partisan way, but in a way that addresses the concerns of the American people. Are you familiar with Project 2025?
I'm not.
You're not? You've never heard of it?
I've heard of it. I'm not familiar with it.
You're not familiar with it. Mr. Ryder, are you familiar with Project 2025?
I have never heard of it. I have never read it. I just on the news when somebody mentions Project 25. No idea what it is.
But let me,
Would I-
you never,
interrupt, sir?
just a second, please. You never heard of it? You never heard of Project 25?
No, I corrected myself. I said I've heard it on the news, but I've never looked at anything from Project 25. I've never read it. Don't know nothing about it.
You know nothing about it. Mr. I'll come back to you, sir. Mr. Chapman, do you not know anything about Project 2025 either?
I've heard of it. I've never read it, so I don't know what the details are in Project 2025.
So you only know its title. You know none of its alleged impacts or intents.
That's correct, just the title.
Wow. Mr. Beer,
Oh, yes, I know it well.
can you share with me the impacts that Project 2025 have imposed would impact our ability to secure our border and make it safer and do the things that we all talk about? To be clear, we're all concerned about fentanyl. We're all concerned about the overrun border. We're all concerned about illegal immigration. There's no issue that there are problems at the border. But to somehow suggest that doing mass deportation without the steps, as I mentioned earlier, You just can't do it. You have to have relationship with the place you're sending them. You have to identify that they belong in the place that you're attempting to deport them to. Can you very quickly, in just a few seconds, tell me about Project 2025 and as it relates to Homeland Security?
Yeah, I mean, Project 2025 is talking about essentially obliterating our legal immigration system, shutting it down. Everything has backlogs, so we can't accept any new applicants. I mean, these are the types of things that are going to result in chaos with more illegal immigration. If you cut off any way for people to come legally, then you're going to get more illegal immigration. And that's what Project 2025 proposes.
And as I close, it's amazing that these esteemed gentlemen who are experts in this space have never heard of Project 2025.
Gentleman's time has
I yield.
expired. I now recognize